Happening today, Fort Jackson is stepping in a big way to make sure a veteran gets honored in a great way. During the flood last month, a casket unearthed in Eastover. The casket belonged to a veteran. His sister is here this morning to tell us about her brother and his service. Miss Vicki Nash. Vicki Nash, thank you so much for being here this morning. We really do appreciate it.
Thanks for inviting me.
You know, when we heard about the story, it was very touching, and thank you so much for coming in and telling us a little bit about it. When did you first find out that the casket that was unearthed during the flood belonged to your brother?
It was later that week. My mom called and she said that the deputy coroner came by her house to notify her that that was my brother's casket that was unearthed.
Wow. So obviously you hear about your brother. Your brother passed away. He died in 1997.
Correct.
So we're talking about 15 plus years. I'm sure this opened up a lot of wounds for you over again.
At first it was like I couldn't believe it. It's like it happens other places, not here. And then as time passed, I would think about it and I'd get a little emotional because it's been like 18 years since he died.
And your brother was buried at the cemetery at St. Philip AME Church, that's in Eastover.
Correct.
And we know Eastover and Gadsden was one of the areas in Lower Richland that was pretty hit badly by this flooding. And here's some pictures of your brother. And for those people that are waking up this morning, of course, he died in 1997, so that's why we have some of these old pictures of your brother. What was your brother like? As you see his pictures flash on the screen, what was he like?
He was quiet. He didn't talk much, but if you wronged him, he didn't like something, he let you know about it.
And that tenacity really helped him. We know that he was in the service. Talk to us about your brother's time in the Army.
He was in the military. I'm not sure how much time he did and when he did it. I knew he was 11 years older than me, so at that time I was about 10, so I was not even thinking about that. But he was in artillery, and he was actually in Vietnam on the front lines. Oh, wow. And he received a disability because at one point they were throwing a grenade at him and his company, and he ran for cover, and his ear plug dropped out of one of his ears, and it shattered his eardrum. So he was disabled, had some disability because of that. He could not hear out of one of his ears. Wow.
You know, one thing about being part of the military always looks out for one of their own. And coming up after the break, folks, we're going to tell you how Fort Jackson is stepping in to make sure that this veteran is honored for what he did for the country. Stay with us, folks. There's more with Vicki Nash after the break. Vicki Nash, whose brother's casket was unearthed during the flooding in Lower Richland. And of course, today, Fort Jackson is stepping in a major way to make sure that he is being remembered because he was actually a veteran. So, Vicki, before the break, we talked about your brother's service. We talked about him being a part of the military. Tell us, how did Fort Jackson get involved in all this?
Once the deputy coroner contacted my mom, excuse me, her niece reminded her that he was a veteran. And so what she did was she contacted Deputy Coroner William Stevens and told him that he was a veteran. And at that time, he took the ball and he ran with it. He did all the leg work for her. She lives out in Eastover, and as you know, that the roads were kind of bad at that time. And he went back and forth to her house twice in one day to pick up some papers and then to return them back the same day. So he did all the leg work to contact Fort Jackson and do the necessary paperwork that needed to get done to have him buried out there.
Wow. Now, how does that, I mean, talk to us about how that makes your family feel. We know before he was buried at in Eastover, but now he's going to be buried at Fort Jackson with all the other veterans.
It's a great honor to have him placed out there. At the time of his death in '97, it was not completed, so that's why he was at our home church. But it's an honor to be able to have him put out there and among his other veterans that also served in the military.
You know, when your brother passed, we have some of his awards here and some of the things from the military. And there's actually a letter, I'm going to hold it up right here, from President Clinton at the time. And he sent this to your family. He says, "This certificate is rewarded by a grateful nation in recognition to devoted and selfless consecration to service for the country.
Yes.
When you all received this letter from President Clinton at the time, did that really speak volumes for you all?
Yes, it did. It said that he was not forgotten. He was not a forgotten soldier.
Wow. And speaking of not forgotten soldiers, so today he'll be buried at 1 o'clock.
Yes.
For the Fort Jackson National Cemetery. That's taking place today at 1 o'clock.
Yes.
We have some of that information up on the screen here. And just at 1 o'clock today, of course, at Fort Jackson National Cemetery. And of course, your brother, Franklin Briggs, is going to be remembered for his service.